What is up, YouTube fam? Robbie C here. Today we are going to address a reality that I discovered, and that is that I am mentally weak. This past weekend I had the opportunity to head up to Lynchburg, Virginia and hang out for their Patreon exclusive event, the Hydro Club Championships, and we discovered a whole lot of stuff that is definitely going to be the highlighted least of the next month's worth of content, as there were quite a few lessons learned. But this one in particular I noticed as I was discussing with my card mates, and yeah, I think we need to discuss how one sweatshirt opened up my eyes to a reality of pain that I could not walk away from. But before we dive in, I have to ask the most important question. How are you doing today, Boyd? Are you having a good one?
So catch me if I fall.
So what do I mean by this sweatshirt opened up my eyes to a reality of pain that I was encountering or coming across? Well, let me walk you through the situation. I flew up to Lynchburg on Thursday, and on Friday we went and shot 2 videos at New London, front 9, back 9, and at one point on a foundation video that I'm pretty confident will come out before the front 9 video that we shot for my channel, I legitimately said to the camera, can I just quit? Can I just not be in this video anymore? Needless to say, I was not playing well.
Oh.
Robbie's
the imposter.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this game is not the imposter.
And when the actual event started, I was able to kind of embrace the fun and the joy and turn on Robbie C versus Robbie Crawford, who was really struggling to get out there and throw well that weekend. Had a great time, and we got to a Sunday where we played singles at New London. Now, it's important to remember that this event was for the Hydro Club patrons, so as foundation staff members, we were not allowed to actually have our scores count towards the overall competition, which was super helpful and allowed us to just play golf without that how am I actually stacking up against the competition vibe. We get split up onto different cards, and I'm playing with 2 lovely individuals who were Hydro Club members, being Chris and Boyd. And because I flew up there, I didn't have a car. I was riding along with the legend himself, Jason Collins. And that morning it was a little chilly out in Lynchburg. Because of that, I had planned accordingly and brought a hoodie to wear, and I had that hoodie on and just vibing. But I knew once we got going in New London and the weather cleared up a little bit, it was gonna be pretty warm, and so I wanted to ditch the hoodie. But alas, I failed to do so. Now, before this absolutely mutilates the mic and I clip this on, it's important to note that I don't often find myself playing in weather that requires hoodies to be worn. I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and at the time of filming this, it is 85 degrees, and it's 80 degrees in Lynchburg, but for this weekend, it was in the 60s to 70s, at least in the morning. Now, my card started on hole 3 at New London, and so I had a pretty bad shank in the video that we filmed on Friday. I played a little safe and just threw a little mid-range shot right at the fairway. Wasn't trying to be too aggressive. Laid up, took a par, no worries. That takes us on to hole 4, which is a flex forehand shot, and a shot that in the other video that we had filmed, I had thrown a pretty decent flex shot with my AJ Destroyer that was not in the water from previous Independence rounds. And boy howdy, did I feel like I'm about to step up and rock this thing, because that AJ Destroyer flexes its way all the way out, and I land about 15 to 18 feet away from the basket with my first look at a birdie. Whew. What a change of pace from when I had just played New London a couple days prior. I'm about to be 1 under par to get things going. I walk up and start lining my putt up, and immediately realize, wow, I have this hoodie on my arm, so I don't like necessarily the clenched part being up there, so I do what I normally think of. I pull that hoodie down. Here we go, and I'm lining it up, and I'm self-consciously thinking about this hoodie the entire time. And what do? From about right here, I jam it straight into the cage. Don't give it any effort whatsoever. Don't give it any power. And I'm telling myself, wow, that was pretty foolish, Roberto. Why did you do that? Why? What happened? So we go on to the next hole, which is hole 5. And we had some things go on in the video that we filmed there. If you haven't gathered, I did not do a good job clearing my head from the previous round, and I was really focused on not making all those mistakes again in the round that I was playing right now. But we go on to hole 5, and I decide that I really don't have to be too crazy. Throw a little chip hyzer from the short pad that we were playing. I throw a little whoop, chip hyzer, then I throw a little whoop, chip hyzer again, and I'm in circle 2. I lay up to about 15 feet away, which is absolutely inside my comfort zone. And as I step up to that 15-foot putt, I'm once again thinking about my sweatshirt sleeve, and I'm like, that's okay, shouldn't be an issue. Let's just go ahead and tap this one in. and I throw it low once again. Now at this point, I'm like, bro, this sweatshirt is really messing with my vibe. I need to do something about this, but I'm not too concerned because, like, you know, it's just 2 putts. So we're going to hole 6. Hardest hole in all of Virginia. Little par 5. We're playing from the shorts once again. I decided to get a little aggressive and I push my sting out into the fairway, make it a good bit, throw another big sting shot and get to the corner where I'm looking down at the basket. And I know I'm not huge, so I'm definitely not going to go for this. Play a little pig upshot to the landing zone, throw a little pig over to the opposite side, and I have myself about a 20-foot straddle putt looking at the basket, and I'm thinking, all right, here we go. Nice and easy par on a really tough hole. All we got to do is just line this up. And I leave it short once again. Immediately, in frustration and rage, what do? I look at this sweatshirt and tell myself I'm not going to let this sweatshirt cost me any more strokes, even though I have to haul it around. My card will tell you that they were laughing quite a bit as I missed that putt on hole 6, my now 3rd putt in a row that I had mentioned my hoodie and failed to take it off, and I took it and I threw it on the ground, walked up, put the disc in the basket. Go to hole 7, which from the short pads actually plays a little spicier because you kind of have to push it on the tee shot, and so I end up in a part of the fairway didn't even know existed. Throw an upshot, throw it from there that was not to the proper landing zone because I didn't realize there was a proper landing zone. Throw this big spike hyzer, and now on this gimme par 5, I'm looking at a long putt, probably, it felt like 40 because it was a little downhill, but realistically it was probably like a 30-foot putt. But I don't have a hoodie on this time, and so what do I step up and do from that 30-foot putt? Well, it wasn't back here, but in full confidence, I just throw a little straddle out, jam it right into the chains. And Boyd's dad, who was caddying for Boyd, looks at me and goes, well, I guess that sweatshirt really was messing with you. Which brings me to today's video, and the whole point of that incredibly long story time is to say that do I think that the sweatshirt cost me strokes? Honestly, yeah, I do think the sweatshirt cost me strokes, but that isn't meant to be an excuse of, oh, how could that sweatshirt do that to me? That is, the sweatshirt cost me strokes because I am mentally weak. And I think that the lesson here is that lots of us have excuses or things that shouldn't actually be a factor in inhibiting us, especially on the putting green, which can emphasize just how mental putting can be. You'll hear people say that putting is mostly mental and that disc golf is mostly mental. And I would agree that disc golf does have a mental aspect to it, but that is only if your physical actually is lined up. For instance, here, I'm not doing any of the physical things that I normally do when it comes to putting, and therefore, none of those putts went in. I simply take a quick second to adjust and say, this is what I am physically supposed to do. And when I do that, suddenly my putting percentage changes drastically from being mentally distracted and turning off the physical habits that I've built up. But let's talk about the sweatshirt and what was actually going on there when it comes to, did it have a physical or mental effect on me? For this hoodie, I had it wrapped up here around my arm. Now, I am someone who I actually love having these bracelets on my arm, and this is a great example of something that is mental and has no physical impact on me whatsoever. When I'm putting and I hold the putter up, my general mantra is I do 5 spins in my hand, I bring it down, and with a deep breath, I tell myself, it's gonna be awesome when we make this putt. I bring the putter up and I look through the putter, find the line at what I wanna do, and there is something about having these bracelets on my arm that makes me distracted from everything in front of me. There's not just the naked arm. I'm not just looking at the stamp on the putter, whatever it may be. Something about these bracelets tells me I feel comfort I feel safe at home. They have quite literally no impact on me throwing the disc, but it's that mental escape, that mental release that feels at home. If I don't have these bracelets on, I can tell you that mental weakness would cause me to have a bad putting round. With the hoodie up on my arm, I could think that it might have a physical impact on my putt. It's very hot, so I don't want to have this thing all the way on. But you can see with this in the arm and it pulled up here, when I go to extend my putt, especially this is more of a baggy hoodie, but if I had a tighter hoodie, let's say, a little more trendy, and I went to putt, you can see right there, I extend my arm and see how this is coming down. It's moving down my arm. If the hoodie's loose and I extend my arm, there is no physical impact. But I tighten that hoodie at all to make it trendy, and boom, there's movement happening on my arm. Now, the hoodie I was wearing was another foundation hoodie, but because there was dew on the ground, I didn't want to spend a lot of time practice putting that morning because I didn't want my putters to be a little extra damp. I find that morning dew to be one of the hardest things to get rid of in disc golf because it's not soaking wet, but it's also not just like ignorable either. It's like that moment when you're driving and it first starts to rain and you kind of got to let the rain build up enough so that you can actually use your windshield wipers effectively. Now, if I would have taken any time to practice putt while I was getting ready that morning or before the round started, I could have known, okay, what do I need more comfort in? Do I need the comfort and warmth of the hoodie so that my hands and body aren't getting cold and therefore I lose feeling in my fingers, which would be a physical weakness in putting or a physical change in my putting? Or do I just need to go and give some practice reps knowing that I think that is going to give a resistance to my putt, which is a physical limitation because as I'm extending this way, there is actual force pulling back on my arm, which could mess up my release points. But if I spent just a little bit of time on the practice green that morning, I could have tested and really had the hoodie out and exaggerated my putt to see, okay, at no point am I going to be extending that hard on a putt. And when I do that, when I fully extend and exaggerate the problem, wow, I would have noticed that the hoodie has literally no effect on my putt whatsoever, therefore making it a mental weakness in not testing this. So chalk that up to 1 mental weakness for not testing the putter and 2 mental weakness for not identifying that it wasn't actually going to have an effect. If it's not hoodies, it could be even the dew that we talked about in the morning. How do I replicate that? Well, I can come out and try to putt first thing in the morning in the backyard, lay my putters out in the grass and see what happens if I just putt with them with that morning dew or that morning dampness on them. I can test the physical limits of the problem that I am mentally associating to being a big physical problem, allowing me to have these 2 columns right here of mental problem and physical problem. And I believe that most times these physical problems are not as large as we make them feel, which is what shifts them into the mental category, holding even more weight. Because no matter what the physical limitations are, the mental category is always going to have to deal with the issues such as, am I going to get this birdie? Am I going to be able to save the par? The scoring potential is always going to be there in that mental category. When I did something so simple as taking a hoodie off and allowed myself to go back to the physical putt and the physical motion that I know that I've practiced and really locked in, I was an amazing putter for pretty much the rest of the round. So if you find yourself as someone who's going to play tournaments or someone who's going to play events, or even you and your friends are weekend warriors and you often find yourself because of kids, life, whatever, you've got to get out early on a Saturday morning and go out and play, and those may be not the conditions that you're used to playing if you get the chance to hop out after work for a quick 9 or a quick 18, to blow off steam after the workday. Take some time, think about what those physical limitations may be, and then address them. Do I think that disc golf comes down to being a physical or mental thing overall? I think that especially when you're beginning, it honestly is about a 50-50 draft, because mentally there are a lot of gymnastics happening that you're trying to do, which is going to have an actual effect on how your body is performing and how your body is doing what it needs to do. The more you practice, the more you can sit here and talk to a camera. And then once I have the motion dialed, I can continue to discuss and turn my brain off and let my body take over on the physical side of things to a motion that I have practiced thousands upon thousands of times. They're completely distracted to the putt, completely distracted to what I'm doing. All 3 strokes that I just lost while I was at New London, we gained and went 10 for 10 from the same distance. But I would be willing to bet that most problems that people come across mentally, such as even when I was discussing the hoodie and the sweatshirt thing with my card, lots of folks mentioned while I was on the card that they feel the same way because they don't often have to play with hoodies or sleeves on as well. So I want to wrap this video by pushing you to the comment section and saying, hey, what are some of the, let's say, physical barriers that you feel like you come across in the side of the game that actually end up being more mental rather than physical? And even if you think this is a physical barrier or stop to your mental game, are there other people that have had ways to overcome that or ways to address that? We can use the comment section here to really help push the game more towards, honestly, I would say the mental side of things, because once we put in the effort and the time and the practice to get our physical pieces dialed in, of the backhand drive, of the forehand drive, of the putt, of the upshot, then we can spend a lot more time on the mental side of things, which is helpful because it's very tough to work on the physical side of the game unless you are out on the practice green, unless you're out on the course, unless you're out on the field doing that work. But the mental side of things we can address and work on all throughout the week rather than just when we're out there on the course. So if we allow this to become a mental game, I think we can make strides way faster than we maybe ever even dreamed. So I hope this video was helpful, and I hope that learning from my mistakes, because like I said, there were several video ideas that came out of just my poor performance. And even as I walked around with lots of players at the Hydro Club Championship, a lot of ideas came into my head. So excited to throw that content your way and looking forward to it. In the meantime, as always, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day and that you can make it fantastic for someone else too. But for now, we're going to leave you with the birdie.